will call to order the special city council meeting for Monday, March 20th, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Edwards.
Here.
Hatsapatinos. Here. Houston.
Here.
Kozak. Here. Panzera.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
President Keeler.
Here.
Mayor Kearns.
Here.
City Attorney Kuzam.
Here.
Director Hale.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. Moving on, comments from visitors. We have no visitors. It's strangely absent today. Moving on, old business item number 1.
Ordinance 2023-06, an ordinance amending the salary ordinance of the City of Grandview Heights and declaring it an emergency.
Thank you. Finance and safety, your committees met earlier today, correct?
We did. We did recommend both committees jointly recommended approval of council, however, this is a second reading.
Okay. Thank you. We will record that as a second reading. Old business item number 2.
Ordinance 2023-08, an ordinance approving the codification of 2022 legislation, editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of the City of Grandview Heights, Ohio.
Thank you, Councilmember Hatsapatinos. Your committee met.
We did, and Attorney Kuzan gave us a rundown about it again, and we made a recommendation to approve.
Thank you. Are there any motions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Clerk, please call the roll on approval.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hatsapatinos,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Kozak,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-08 has been approved.
Thank you. Moving on to old business item number 3.
Ordinance 2023-09, an ordinance to convert a portion of a temporary advance between funds to a permanent transfer between funds.
Thank you. Chair Smith, your committee met.
Yes, we met this ordinance before the last meeting, and again, this is pretty straightforward. There was a grant money for the bulletproof vest for the police, and at the end of the year, we did a temporary transfer from 101 to 274 funds. And when the funding came in from the state, it was $772.61 short, so we just made this a permanent transfer from 101, Fund 101 to 274. And our committee recommended approval to council.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, questions, motions?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Hatsapatinos,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Kozak,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-09 has been approved.
Thank you. Old business item number 4.
Ordinance 2023-10, an ordinance to update chapters 1139, 1141, and 1147 of the codified ordinances of the City of Grandview Heights pertaining to the posting of meeting notices for the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals hearings.
Thank you, Chair Hatsapatinos. Your committee met.
Yes, we met this evening, had a good discussion about it, talked about how there actually is a good financial benefit to change this, and it costs anywhere between $400 and I think over $1,000 to post ads in the Dispatch, which is the only publication that we can post in since Tri-Village News is no longer with us. So moving digitally, remaining with paper postings within the city in their normal places, and with the yard signs seems like the best route. So we did recommend approval as well as suspension of the rules so that this could get passed in time for the April meetings.
Thank you.
Move
Yeah.
to suspend.
Second.
That's a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Houston,
Yes.
Kozak,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hatzifatinus,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
The rules for ordinance 2023-10 have been suspended.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Kozak,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hatzifatinus,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-10 has been approved.
Thank you. Moving on to new business item number 1.
Resolution 10-2023, a resolution urging the legislative branches of the federal government in the state of Ohio to enact legislation to further protect the citizens of the city of Grandview Heights, Ohio from inherent dangers of train derailments.
Thank you. Our sponsors, council members Kozak or Houston, would you like to speak to this legislation?
I'll just speak briefly, and I asked Melanie to co-sponsor this with me because she's done work on the situation in East Palestine. But this, Joelle, I think when you and Emily brought this, to us with the National League of Cities, so we're looking to get support from Congress and the Ohio General Assembly, to put in some measures to make it safer for trains that are bringing, dangerous materials through our communities. And I know that, Sherry Brown and J.D. Vance are co-sponsoring some legislation. I know that you speak for that since I think you were just there.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Councilmember Kozak. And I will just build on what you had noted to say that there's a little bit of rail safety legislation updates in the venue is the state transportation budget bill, which has, I believe, passed the House, but is hung up in the Senate right now. So if anyone is interested in reaching out to their legislative members or the Senate leadership about that, it is a timely opportunity. And then, of course, supporting the federal bill, the Railway Safety Act of 2023. So thanks for everyone's support. I hope what will be your support for this resolution.
Absolutely. If you have any information, I'm going to the legislative day on Wednesday, so if you have anything.
Get that to you.
Please send that.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. All right. Are there any discussion, thoughts?
I'd like to say commend you all for sponsoring this resolution. I believe Council Member Houston could probably elaborate or clarify a little bit, but I know that with that derailment in Ohio, that I believe that there was a regulation that was in place, a safety measure that was repealed by the last administration. And it's good that this is legislation as opposed that Senators Brown and Vance are sponsoring us the way to go as opposed to regulations. Because a lot of times with regulations, there'll be a regulation in place just like this, and then the next administration will come along and just wipe out various regulations, which, you know, it's hard to do that with legislation that's enacted.
I would just request that Leilani mail copies to all of our respective legislators in Washington as well as in Ohio.
Great idea. yeah.
Absolutely.
If anything, some of the language included in this is a little docile. It could be a lot more aggressive, so that's my comment on it. So of course, I'm fully supportive. Is this intended for passage tonight?
It is a resolution, so it can be if there's a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion second.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll on resolution 10/20/2023.
Is Melanie second?
Yes.
Oh, I was the second.
You were second, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Thank you.
Thanks.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hatzifatinus,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Kozak,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Resolution 10-2023 has been approved.
Thank you. Moving on to other business, we have 1 and 2 are related to each other. These are new liquor permits. For a new D5 liquor permit for 1056 Dublin Road and 1072 Dublin Road. It's my understanding these are empty spaces that are looking to be rented out. And I don't know if we are able to say who those people are yet.
I did not hear back, but, I was told by the attorney for, Thrive and the Wagons-Brenner Group that there are, tenant negotiations underway for both of those spaces right now. They just did not identify to me who their tenants are.
Thank you. And the purpose of doing this with the eventual transfer is because the transfer is quicker than a new permit, and so this gets everything rolling along, correct?
That's my understanding.
Right, thank you. Are there any discussions on one or two of these, or both related, so we'll discuss those concurrently? No. So with these, there's a motion to not do anything. Is there anything? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we will send those out,
Thank you.
the paperwork back. Next, we have the transfer liquor permit request for TRFO, all the stuff. So this is the new Bobcat Sports Bar on First Avenue.
Would you mind terribly swapping those so that Rebecca sees herself for this one?
Oh, absolutely. We'll do four first before three, the new liquor permit for D1 liquor permit for Ohio Springs Incorporated, which is also known as Sheets, on Grandview Avenue, which is on the corner of Grandview and Dublin Road. This one, there is some thoughts that pertain to this. Director Kuzan, if you wanted to elaborate on kind of what's going on with that.
If I may,
Mayor.
thank you. The administration actually has a position against authorizing this for a couple of reasons. One is outlined in the memo that you got from the police chief. The other is that the building has occupancy pursuant to a conditional use permit, and by allowing this use, it would change have material change on the conditional use and would not be permitted. So there would be zoning and planning proceedings required to even permit this. All that aside, I think that we spoke to the city attorney and the police chief earlier today regarding having some more communications, and some communications have been had with Sheets management to follow up on the meeting that was held with the police chief, and to express the concerns about the conditional use, and to see if they indeed really want to pursue this. And so that's where that stands. I guess, what did I miss, Joelle?
Yeah, so shortly after we talked today, I reached out to the only representative that I was aware of for Sheets, who happens to work for the development company, so it's very likely that he's not really the right contact, but I asked him to forward it on. Kind of laid out exactly what the mayor just said, that there's a conditional use problem with adding more people and having more impact at this particular site without having the planning commission review that. Not to mention the police chief's concerns. I didn't go into a lot of detail about the police chief's concerns, just said that, it's taking a disproportionate amount of our resources to manage that site. All that said, I invited him to contact me promptly and to let us know if they planned to go forward with this application. I can't remember whether this was in the chief's memo, but the chief mentioned that when he contacted their security folks, this would be, in effect, their first Columbus site that would have an on-premises permit if their application is granted. They have this model in Pennsylvania, but not yet in Ohio. So, anyway, I would prefer that they would drive, or that they modify it and, come through planning commission first. But it was not possible to get an answer to that today. At this point, you can either take action, which would result in requesting a hearing, not return the application, or not return it at this time, or consent to, have a no action vote, which would result in consenting to, or not objecting to the application, which, based on the chief and the mayor, I am thinking is not the direction that the city wants to go.
So you haven't heard back, correct?
I just checked, I did not hear back from him. he had an out-of-office message on that said, best way to reach me is on my cell, but nobody has a cell number, so nobody was available today.
So just to clarify, if we opted to do nothing tonight, and perhaps we're able to review this at another meeting once we heard back, would it be possible to forward the letter regarding the police chief's concerns, as well as the concerns of the non-compliance with the use, and see if there's an extension that we could get to review this until we have more information? Would that be possible?
Yeah, the plan is to, so the chief can voice concerns to any property at any time, to the Division of Liquor Control. It's not, it doesn't have to do with this particular application. But I think for right now, the course of action that we discussed and that I recommend to you is that we send the letter, the form back to the Division of Liquor Control along with the chief's identification of concerns, as well as a letter from Mazzara, who will be back from vacation tomorrow, outlining the conditional use issue, and suggesting to them that, this isn't right for the legislative authority's consideration right now. So we're not approving, but we just don't think the timing makes it possible to rule on it in any way.
Other questions, discussion?
I just want some additional clarity. But those are effectively mutually exclusive, though.
Not necessarily. So their letter, their form is due back the 31st. If we had, occasion to have another meeting before then, and we had more information from the owners, we could do something about it. I suggest we don't send anything back before the 31st, but I will try to contact someone else at the division tomorrow. I've got the name of another administrative person, and see if, sending a blank form, basically, with just these two supplemental letters would either create an extension or an opportunity to object at a later date at our next council meeting.
So are you suggesting that we not take a roll call or a voice vote on this measure and request a hearing?
I mean,
Because I think we lose.
You can request the hearing, and then you can always withdraw the
Yeah.
request for the hearing.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
That would be for sure the safest course, I guess. I'm wondering if you guys would agree to do that contingent on me not hearing back from the owners. So if they don't respond, then we send it back and we say, we're doing this to preserve our right. We're not necessarily looking to have a hearing, but we don't want to miss the opportunity to have one.
Well,
If they call us back and they withdraw their application, that would be the best case scenario.
Right, no, I understand. Council's role is very specific in this. It doesn't have to do with zoning
Understood.
at all.
Right.
So I'm not comfortable with simply saying, yeah, the zoning's gonna be a problem, so let's not act on this. I would have a much stronger voice from my perspective based upon what was illustrated both in the memo and what I've discussed privately with the administration, that this should in no way be misunderstood. And I'm supposing what this body is going to, what the result is gonna be, but I don't want it to be ambiguous. So I think we should make a clear statement, or it should be put to a vote. Let me be more open about that as to the desire for a hearing to take place to object to this enhanced license.
Yeah, so the only modification I was proposing to that is that we basically not send anything back till like the 30th. And then if I hear from them before then, and they say we're gonna withdraw our application, if I can send you guys confirmation that they're withdrawing their application at this time, then we wouldn't have to take action by sending back the letter. We'll still send them the chief's letter, because that's kind of, to me, independent of.
So you're relying on the default of not responding to be our answer?
No, go
I
ahead,
don't-
go ahead and take a vote to.
Okay,
To object, if you want, to preserve, to preserve your right to do that. But if they call me back tomorrow and say, we're gonna withdraw our application, then there's
Then
really
it's
no
null.
need for us to
Right.
mail it.
yeah, no, I understand.
What is the downside of, a hearing to set the stage for the?
The possible cost of,
Okay.
going forward with somebody who specializes in liquor law.
Okay, because I don't have a framework for what the hearing looks like.
Yeah,
so
and it's,
I'm asking.
again, I've never been to a liquor, objection hearing, but from what I am told, somewhat second or third hand, it's involved.
But I would also just point out that the chief had a productive meeting with them. I don't think we want to get into a tangle with a national chain who, I think we'd rather work this out and have
Right.
them understand to withdraw this than bring on a hearing and have it be adversarial if it doesn't need to be. That's the other, I guess,
Okay.
downside. It's maybe
Yeah.
a slight downside, but of course, we would want to preserve the right by the 31st to do that if
Yeah.
it were warranted.
Okay.
I think just not signing the letter kind of sets it up for not agreeing to this. And we can send a non-signed, whatever form it is, back with a letter from the chief and a letter from, Director Colker, kind of stating the concerns that there are, and that we can then, have discussions around that, allowing them to either amend, withdraw, or whatever it might be for this application.
So just to be clear, I'm kind of hearing two different things from
Yeah.
both of you. I think Anthony's suggesting that we object to the letter with the caveat that we'll sit on it until the 30th or 31st and give them time to, come up with a plan B. And if they don't withdraw their application, we would send the objection, along with a letter from the building department and from the police chief. I just want to clarify.
I think the issue of sitting on it is we don't have another meeting
Right.
to address if it addresses our concerns or not.
No, it's just buying them a little bit of time to
Yeah.
come to some internal
Which-
business.
Which I don't object to buying them time, it's just we will not be meeting as a body to evaluate whatever new information might be coming.
If I may,
Yes,
I'm just looking at the form,
yeah,
and it requires us to mark one of the following: requesting a hearing, not requesting a hearing.
correct.
We need to fill up, I think that the action that we need to take is to do our voice vote. It sounds like we all want to check the box that we do want to request a hearing, but it doesn't have to be postmarked until the 31st. And so this would probably be an issue for Leilani, is to make sure that it's mailed or postmarked on or before the 31st if we haven't heard back from them. Because if we hear back from them in the meantime, they withdraw it, and there's no need to return this and request a hearing.
Correct, if they withdraw, but if they don't withdraw it,
Then we need to send it.
then do we send it?
Yes. Yeah, and I think, again, not being an expert in this area, I take Anthony's point that not checking the box for objection or requesting a hearing could forego our right to do so at a later time.
Yeah, I think we should check
Because
the
I'm not
box.
sure, I can't guarantee you as I sit here right now, that the Division of Liquor Control might say, yeah, we'll extend you another 30 days to have another hearing or another council meeting on it. I'd be surprised.
I don't think that's okay.
So we can do that, we can sit on it with, if we do send it, with the letter from the chief and from the Director Folker regarding our concerns.
And in the alternative, if they notify us that they're withdrawing, I would send you guys some kind of written confirmation saying they've withdrawn, in which case we'll send the chief's letter, but we won't send this form that says objection
By
by
the
the
30th.
31st.
And
Or by the business,
business.
yeah.
Point of information.
Yes.
So the fact that they're I don't know if this is the right language, out of compliance, but this zoning issue, does that not nullify this form?
It does not.
Okay, just wanted to check on that, okay.
I would move that city council request a hearing and object to this this enhanced liquor license. I believe it's identified as transaction number BN 6521509-0440 for Ohio Springs Inc., DBA Sheets DBA Sheets 732 at 744 Grandview Avenue, Grandview Heights, Ohio 43215.
Second, would you like to caveat if you hear from
No.
them? Okay, that's a first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That has been passed.
Requesting a hearing.
We'll update you guys.
Thank you.
Point of information.
Yes.
Is, do we need to check in our county seat or Columbus as well? Or which one of those will it be?
I think they're the same in this instance.
Doesn't matter, okay.
Yeah, sometimes the locale is different than where your parent company is.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so other business, item number 3 is transfer liquor permit TFRO of D5, D6 liquor permit 5378-040-17 TFT LLC and patio 109799 West First Avenue, Grandview Heights, Ohio, to D5, D6 liquor permit 7934939 SDG Holdings LLC and patio 109799 West First Avenue, Grandview Heights, Ohio 43212. So this is where the old Weaver restaurant was at. I don't know if y'all went to the opening. But their current permit, correct me if I'm wrong, for alcohol is under the previous owners, and that is why they are operating currently, and they are looking to transfer that permit to them. Director Kuzan, if you'd like to
Correct.
elaborate.
Yeah, correct. There are also a few other outstanding issues that need to be resolved. So they're currently operating under a temporary occupancy permit that was granted to them with the understanding that there's no life or safety issues. But the fire department has one inspection left to do. The building department has signed out on inspections, and then there's a zoning issue that they'll be going to planning commission on in April. So once all those things have been met, their temporary occupancy will convert to a permanent certificate of occupancy, which doesn't directly impact the liquor control.
Doesn't transfer the
Yeah.
license.
And their liquor,
Is subject to the management agreement that they've got.
it's temporary,
And just to clarify, if we approve this, they're still, need to report to what they need to do for occupancy, so if they do not do that, this wouldn't necessarily be revoked, but they could not operate because of that.
Correct, they couldn't sell on premises without their certificate of
Couldn't have
occupancy.
an occupant.
All right, is there any discussion?
I have a question, I know this is outside of council's purview, but like that they didn't pull the permit for that patio, is that what's going before planning commission?
No.
No.
They,
Go ahead.
the staff worked with them to open on a certain date and got them a temporary occupancy permit as stated. There are a variety of issues that will come before planning commission,
Okay,
but they have a right to occupy now.
okay.
Yeah, I think, the big things, to get the place open had to do with fire safety and parking and accessibility, and they were able to create an additional handicap parking in the back. So the ramp and stairs issue is a non-issue for going forward.
And there are really 2 separate issues. All we're looking at
Yeah.
tonight is the liquor permit. So they're within their rights by operating under this agreement. and we just need to decide if we want to object to any kind of transfer.
I would-
Yes.
I make a motion that city council not object to the transfer as amended.
I'll second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's been approved. Moving on, we have comments from council members.
Can I ask a quick question? Are
Yes.
you returning that form?
Mhm.
Correct.
You are returning the form for all of them, and then the sheets you will
Hold
request
until-
in here.
Thank
But
you.
you will hold.
Yeah,
it.
you're
Yeah.
able to. Thank you.
All right, and if you could just check with Joelle.
Yeah.
It's getting close to the
Yep.
deadline. All right, so next we have comments from council members.
And I did want to say something. Next month is Fair Housing Month, and I met with Jennifer Knoll of Mortsey back in January, and I invited her to come speak, and then Emily had also reached out to her. She will be speaking about a 2021 study, the housing study they did, and then also about source of income legislation. So that will be on April 10th. She'll be here that night to talk about those things. I have been.
I don't think she'll be here April 10th. She'll be here the first meeting in April.
April 10th.
I think we're
That's
switching
our
because
first
of
one.
spring.
Oh, yeah,
We
yeah.
switched it because
Okay.
of spring break.
Sorry.
And I just wanted to say a few words about this because I've been doing some research on source of income, so just with some background, before she comes and speaks to us. But in September of 2020, Bexley was the first community to pass that legislation. And, I think everyone's familiar, but it is added to the Fair Housing Law so that, landlords cannot turn someone away from applying just based on their source of income. If they've got social security, disability, alimony, child support, veterans benefits, and then the vouchers seem to take the focus away from all those other things, but that's one of them, one of the types of income. So Bexley passed that back, it was a 6-1 vote back in September of 2020. And then there were 5 other communities in 2021 that passed it, all unanimously or 6-1. Westerville, Reynoldsburg, Columbus, Worthington, Whitehall, and then Gahanna just passed it last October. And I know one of the pushback points I'd heard here was that we don't have our own fair housing law, but 2 of these communities, they don't have fair housing laws either, or didn't. In Whitehall, their mayor was pushing for this, and they did a standalone ordinance in December of 2021, just to address source of income legislation only. And she was using for her enforcement, like she would, and the police would do the enforcement, so I didn't really like that model. But then, this past October, when Gahanna passed it, they have a council member, Marissa Bowers, who is an attorney, and, she led that effort. And so what she did was, she did draft a whole fair housing law, but she put that all in place through this ordinance, but she puts the enforcement of everything but SOI back where it would fall anyway on the state. But then for SOI, what she did was create a fair housing commission. And she offers that first to the people on the Civil Service Commission if they'd like to be on that board. And then they go out to the public to get volunteers, and then the council would approve those things and put the people on that commission, and they would hear cases if any are brought forward. So I liked her model, and working to look through the other communities to see what they've done to get different ideas, to put something together. And I know that I've talked with most of you at some time about this legislation, and just to get your general opinion and feeling on it. The things that I heard back from a couple of people were that they were worried that it would impact negatively the rents, that the rents would go up. But rents are driven by the market and not by, I think that's something that's floated out there, that having the vouchers are going to increase the rents, but rents are driven by the market. And unfortunately, for us in Grandview, the rents have gone up to a point, because I've been collecting rent data for Move to Prosper, the nonprofit that I work with. I've been looking for apartments in Grandview, 2 bedrooms that are $1,350 or less. Those still do exist, but to try and find a landlord that would work with that program. So I've been collecting the data. And there are actually not that many apartments that would even be voucher eligible at this point because of how much rents have increased by here in Grandview, which is different from other communities. And Matt Jolson, he's a council member on Marble Cliffs Council, and he's an attorney, and he also owns different rental properties. And he has a lot of voucher holders who are his tenants. So I got some information with him. I've had different conversations with him. But I thought that the 1134 payment standard for the vouchers was like that you could go up to that amount, but he said no, because that includes utilities. So really what you're looking at is a $950 amount for a 2-bedroom apartment. And the only place that I have seen that still has that kind of pricing is that one building on First Avenue by the Butcher, Colonial Apartments. They have 48 units, 32 I think are 1-bedrooms for $750, and the other 16 are 2-bedrooms for $850. And the Woodhill Apartments used to be $950, but I haven't seen any of those for rent for a while, so I'm assuming that the price is probably more than that. So I'm just wanting to cover all the bases with the things that I've heard from people as pushback points there, and just sort of what the housing situation looks like here. And I would be happy to discuss this further with any of you. I wanted to bring another speaker in, but Emily mentioned that she only allows one speaker per topic unless there's legislation on the table per year. So I, at whatever point the legislation is there, would invite other people to come and speak. I don't know if anybody has any other comments or questions.
If there are other comments or questions?
I'll provide a reply, thank you.
Yes.
I am not supportive of any legislation that will be brought to this council that includes specific carve-outs for the requirement of CMHA or Section 8 accommodations. The other items that are in SOI in general, I'd be supportive of. I think it's good business, and we can get into the deliberations further. I'll have plenty of supportive reasoning. It's not singular, but in whole, and as just a general introduction, CMHA payments are not income, they're payments. So this is incorrectly labeled as a source of income. Those recipients do not have income that is equal to that rent payment.
You could
It is
argue
a source
that
of payment.
about the alimony and child support too.
Then we'll include that if that's your debate.
No, because
But
that.
I will not support anything that specifically requires every landlord in the city of
Okay,
Granby
you-
Heights to.
No, I'm sorry, you can go on.
Oh,
I understand.
I appreciate that, thank you. I'll repeat it then. I will not support any legislation that comes to this council that requires every landlord in Granby Heights to have Section 8 accommodations. It's not something that is in line with the contemplation of market rent. So we'll get to it. There'll be plenty to talk about, and I'm happy to bring it forward.
And I would also then like to say that this isn't, the legislation is not to say, if you have 5 applicants and then you have one person with the CMHA voucher, that you have to take that person. It's that you can't turn people away because they have these types of incomes, which currently happens now in the communities that don't have this, these protections.
I know it
And-
sounds that simple to you, that's not.
And, okay, but you have other things in place. This legislation, and each community is different, but nobody that I've seen so far is taking away the ability of a landlord to put in a credit score, to do a background check, to do that. There are other screening criteria to get to the best person that they would like to take.
Correct,
as a
but what it
resident.
does do implicitly is require that every unit, every dwelling in the city be Section 8 accepted. And that's a
No,
whole
not if
different
they're-
conversation.
Not if they, because, no, you can't, we don't have units here in the city that meet that criteria.
Then why
have
are we
any-
bringing it as legislation?
So,
Because of all
we
the
are
other
not
parts.
having legislation currently, and I appreciate you bringing this forward. I appreciate your thoughts. I do
Because-
think we're getting into a lot of hypothetical things. There's no legislation proposed.
And can I say one last thing, please? One
Would
last
you?
thing.
Yes.
It's not, because it's not all about the vouchers. That's been the focus. Everyone's focused on that. But there are all these other components, which I think that we're gonna see this impacting a lot more people with child support and alimony. Is what I think who this will benefit and
All
help.
right, thank you.
We
We do not have legislation before us, and we can,
That's-
if and when we have legislation, we can delve into this further. But I appreciate you giving us an update, I appreciate your thoughts on the matter, and, I look forward to, hearing further comments on what this might look like. But I don't think we need to delve into this issue here currently with no legislation before us. Are there any other comments from council members? All right, well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.